Coming to you weekly from the OnPay recording studio, this is the Cloud Accounting Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And we are coming to you live from the OnPay recording studio with our special guest this week, Ashley Francis, CPA. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for taking time out of your Saturday morning to join us and talk
on
about...
a holiday weekend, right? A 3-day weekend. We're like,
that's
hey,
right.
Let's record the podcast because we can't skip a week. We always have to record.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. I didn't realize that sort of thing until I was like, I'm going to make a newsletter. And then it's like, oh, wait, that's a weekly thing. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Right. And then you start to think, oh, did I really want to do this after like doing 12 of them? You realize it's going to be hundreds of them. Yeah. But I mean, you just have such a wealth of knowledge, Ashley. And I'm excited to have you on the show because you are a tax practitioner who is experimenting with AI. You've been on this ChatGPT thing since January and have been putting out some awesome content on your Twitter account, which is at Seattle_tax. Everyone go follow Ashley on Twitter. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you with David about all the stuff that's going on and you know what we can do with it right now and what we can expect in the the
And Ashley had a tweet storm this weekend.
Oh, I totally
or this week, all about the new Microsoft Build conference. And I couldn't keep up, so I said, Blake, just have her on the show so we can ask her the questions. It'll be easier.
I felt so bad. I was like, okay, you guys, this is just next 2 days. I'm just everything amazing I see, you're going to hear about it. And there's so much that happened.
So the thing that I saw, and I haven't really been paying attention to this, but I did see the announcement about Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. And there was this cool splashy video that I want to play for everybody. It's just like a minute and a half long. It doesn't have any narration, so we'll have to like live narrate it. Okay, so feel free to join me in explaining for our podcast listeners what we are seeing on the screen. So here we go. Dramatic music.
It was very dramatic. Like it made your heart beat a little bit, you know?
Introducing Windows Copilot. Integrated into all of Windows. We've got this like chat bar on the side. Somebody's typing.
How can I adjust my system? Do you see that? Do you know how to get into settings? Because I have to like flail around every time.
Right. So apparently now we'll never have to go into settings again, and
right.
we can just ask
it. Just did a dark theme right there. Just which I didn't know there was. But
now we're dropping a PDF into the chat tool, and it is summarizing the PDF.
Works with all of your apps.
So somehow you're going to be able to like start a Spotify playlist from the chat tool. Chill vibes. Stay in your flow and get creative. Now we're doing some graphic design here. And we are asking it to send the graphic design to our team in Microsoft Teams. And it's doing it without us having to open the app.
And everybody's very excited about it.
Everyone uses a lot of emojis in these videos.
They sure do. Yeah.
They're really good at it. I don't know how people type emojis so fast. Like I always have to like open up a little search and I don't know. I need to figure that out. Anyway.
I do.
So if I quickly just summarize this quick. 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, whenever it was, we talked about Copilot. Microsoft showed all this stuff threaded to Office 365. Now Copilot's going to be just part of Windows?
Yeah. So as they kept talking during the conference, I was like, wait a second. Copilot is just what they're calling the functionality that's going to be the AI functionality that's going to be in all of their products. So, and obviously all of this AI functionality is going to work differently for each product. So like Windows, what we saw was it was pulling up that Spotify playlist. It was able to access all of your documents that live in your file explorer. It was, it's able to bounce around between your different apps. And so that's kind of how you work with your Windows environment. In Office 365, it's like, I saw this presentation where this woman was in Teams chat called up the Copilot, asked it to pull all of the emails related to a specific topic, summarize it for her, go grab the documents around that project, and then create a response to an email based on what all the stuff that she saw there. And
Wow.
it did, and that was all she had. It was all in Teams chat. Never had to leave Teams chat.
So it's pulling the
Can you
emails from Outlook.
imagine, like, with our clients and our
Yeah.
client, like the amount of data we receive for a client, and how, like, our clients receive so many disparate pieces of data that all deal with different things. And if a client asks us a question, we have to go down the rabbit hole of which folder is it in, what are all of the things attached to it? Did we capture everything? Where now Copilot is just going to do that? What am I going to do with my time? I don't understand this. This is so.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's that wasted time, right? Where you're hunting. You find it all,
Absolutely.
then you got to open them up. And then a lot of times it's like, there's an email where there's a specific thing was said, and you need to go
Right?
cite it or grab it. And that takes you, that's the one that you always can never find, the important one.
Yeah,
You're
you
clicking
just
around.
search for it and like 800 emails come up. You're like, was it May? Was it January? I know we talked about this. And the other thing is too, is that there is that moment where you have to remember everything that happened around that particular conversation, synthesize everything you're reading in order to answer a quick question. And that makes those quick questions. I mean, what quick question is out there, really? Especially with the complexity of what we're dealing with now. I don't think there's any quick questions other than what is my middle name, right? Everything is getting so much more complicated. We get so much data. So the idea that our client's perception of what a quick question is now going to actually be a quick question for us. That's so exciting.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to my time as a manager in public, and my biggest challenge was probably just keeping tabs on all of my clients. And so I had to take really good notes every time I had a meeting, every time an email came in. I had like client notes in OneNote, and I had a folder or a page for each client, and I'd try to keep track of them that way. But this could do that for me, which would just save so much time, because I didn't always make good notes, right? Like, to be honest, I didn't always write everything down. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, with the new, so there's the new Teams coming out, because one thing I hear consistently about Teams is how much everyone hates it. And from what I understand, that's a function of the fact that it was never built to support as many people as it had to support during the pandemic. Like, suddenly everyone shifted to using Teams, and they're like, oh goodness, okay, let's get these folks supported. And so it wasn't really meant to do that. They had to kind of merge two software platforms. Or see, this is why you take me to a developer conference. I'm only half helpful, but and so there's a new Teams coming out that is in preview, I think, right now, that fixes those problems of being slow and clunky. And then also, when you are in a Teams meeting, you can record the transcript. You can do that already, but you can have Copilot in your transcript and talk to it about what's just happened, or have it tell you how folks are feeling based on what they're saying, or what's the temperature of the meeting. Or the example I loved was, if you show up late to a meeting, you can have it tell you everything that you missed and if somebody mentioned you. So soon your transcripts are actually going to be useful, because you can have them summarized and all of the data points pulled out, instead of just like, well, that's great, I have a transcript, I'll never look at that again.
Yeah.
Really what you do is the opposite. Like, instead of making a summary of the meeting, I'm going to give my 2 or 3 things I wanted to say in the meeting, and just have chat GPT attend the meeting for me, and when they call on me, it just responds, and then you don't ever attend the meeting. Just
I don't
completely
hate
get rid of
that.
meetings.
I don't hate
Well,
that.
this is good news because I saw a report from Microsoft that the number one killer of productivity in companies is, drumroll, no surprise actually, it's just people spending an entire day a week in meetings. Close to 8 hours in an entire weekday each week in online meetings. Inefficient meetings are the number one workplace distraction that hurts productivity, followed closely by having too many meetings. That was from a Microsoft survey of 31,000 workers across the globe. Nearly 2 in 3 people, regardless of whether they are working remotely, in person, or on a hybrid schedule, say they struggle with having the time and energy to do their job because of meetings and email bloat. So if AI can summarize meetings for us so we don't have to attend them, if it can summarize email threads so we don't have to read them, then that's gonna really help us as knowledge workers.
Yeah.
And they also looked at the data. I had that same article. They looked at the actual data they had of trillions of minutes they've been tracking of people doing different things. But my takeaway from this article, Blake, is like, and actually you could help with this too. Like in general, like everybody's really hard on themselves, right? And like we just beat ourselves up, and there's all these books like Deep Work and all this stuff, and like there's this pressure of like, oh man, I have to optimize my whole schedule so I can get 40 hours of deep work in a week, because if I don't, I'm useless, or you beat yourself up. And so is really this an issue at all? Like, should we just really reframe like, hey, in the reality of the working world, if you get 4 hours of deep work a week, that's a home run. And that's just the environment we are. Like, instead of creating this undue pressure, because even articles like this, it just creates more pressure. Like you're not worthy, right? You're not doing enough deep work. Right?
I think it's really interesting that we have this idea that the human brain can operate for 40 hours a week at its optimal level. The whole 40-hour-a-week work week thing, and I might be incorrect on this, but I believe stemmed from limiting the number of hours that factory workers were required to work, because they were working in like just 12 to 14 hours a day. And so 40
Physical
hours
labor.
a week, right, was the that was the like concession for factory workers, physical labor. But
Right.
the human brain isn't capable of doing really smart things for 40 hours a week. You're going to get a good 3 to 4 hours of brilliance out of it a day, and then the rest of it is just kind of churning along.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of one of the exciting, like, I really hope when this technology comes out, our first impulse isn't to do more work. Like, oh, look, it's done everything for us, so therefore we're going to add 100% more of what we do. I'm hoping that we can start discussing, okay, this does a lot of work. Now we're going to kind of respect the human brain cycle and give folks the space that they need to do the deep work, and then the space that they need to do creative work and,
Yeah.
do people stuff.
Most of the work we do these days, like right now, is not deep work. It's not creative work. It doesn't take a lot of brain power. It's just a lot of clicking and moving stuff around and collecting documents and replying to emails. It's stuff that other people could do, but we don't have those other people to do it.
Well, and
Right.
it does take up
So-
like brain power though, right? It
Right.
takes up our valuable brain power to go out and hunt for documents, read through them all again, make sure we have everything, synthesize it, and then create output. That takes
Yeah.
up valuable brain power that could be doing things that are actually value add.
So you're out there, you're doing stuff with ChatGPT. We've got other folks putting out prompts and showing us what we can do. But, the number of accountants, the percentage of accountants that are actually like taking advantage of this has got to be really, really small right now, right? I mean, so it's going to take building this into products like Microsoft and in our practice management software, our tax software, to actually, get those big productivity boosts that we're looking for.
QuickBooks.
Mhm.
It's coming
And-
there.
So then I think, okay, well, knowing the pace of change in the world of accounting and tax software, especially in tax, especially in audit, like it's going to take a while, right? And that's kind of disappointing. But Ashley, I was talking to you a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about how with Microsoft's suite, there are products in there where we could actually start building this in our practices today.
Yeah. Oh, that's very exciting. Yes. So there's actually a couple of options, and one of them is, and it's very exciting because they did all of these announcements at the conference, and one whole section of it was the Power Platform, and the Power Platform is kind of a funny name, and it's kind of a dorky name. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you're like, what is a Power Platform? Sounds very 90s, right?
We've got the power.
You got the power, but it's these series of this is a suite of tools that pulls in the low code. So if you're familiar with Zapier, you have Power Automate, which is in like all Microsoft products, it's way more robust than a Zapier. So yes, it will move things from point A to point B, but it will then allow you to completely transform what's in that point A to point B. So in our cases, we have so many repetitive tasks that can be automated. We just need to learn we just need to build processes, right? We're so bad at building processes for ourselves. So if we build processes that for these things that we do repetitively, we can automate it. And one of the things that one of the number one things that I tell people is that think about the thing that takes the most time out of your practice. One of those things is engagement letters. Imagine if you could automate creating engagement letters. How much better would your life be? Probably all the better, right? Someone was saying it took, I don't know, it was like 100 hours for their admin to do all of their engagement letters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure their admin had other things to do during that time period. So you can absolutely automate engagement letters using Power Automate. And at the conference, they announced that Copilot is in Power Automate. So it's in preview right now. And before, Power Automate had this describe to design feature, which is basically tell it what you want and it will try to figure out what you're getting at. And now they have that, plus once your flow is designed, you can have like a ChatGPT sort of interface, kind of add things to it and explain to you what your flow is supposed to do.
So is Power Automate something that if I have a subscription to Microsoft 365, I get that as part of it?
Yeah. If you want the premium connectors, it's $15 a month, and then if you want the robotic process automation, that's $45 a month. But
okay. So for my whole org or for like per user?
Per user, but not everybody has to use it.
Right.
Like I'm the only one who puts these sorts of things into my goodie basket when I'm adding these to because I'm the only one who uses it. So you can choose it on a person by person basis, and $15 a month for like all of the connectors you get access to, plus the fact that it will modify your data in between and bring in data from other sources.
So Ashley, where's it at on the consistency? And this is where the problem I'm having with ChatGPT type AI tools is I'll do something 5 times in a row, and all of a sudden, like the 6th time, I'm like, it's bizarro world where it got that from. So I'm thinking, like, if you have to do 100 engagement letters, how does every letter like come out the same? And you know what I mean? Where it's not like all of a sudden it just changed the tone and it created these new sentences. And it's like, why did you just impulsively do that? Because I know it's just rolling a dice and predicting what to do first. But how do you control that variability that you see so much right now with this stuff?
That's actually the great thing. So like when I talk about this stuff, I like to separate out using AI, generative AI, versus when would you use an automation? Because the automation, you want to automate things that you want it to be the same every single time. Because the variability and randomness is built into the GPT-4 engine. So when we talk about ChatGPT, it's sitting on top of the GPT-4 engine. And one of the things that they really like about it is that it is random and has a level of entropy. In fact, one of the presenters was kind of lamenting that the GPT-4 engine lost some of its entropy when, like, during the training. I was like, oh, no, we're fine with that. We're fine with it losing like entropy. So when you think about like generative AI, you're thinking, instead of it being like a robot assembly line, you're thinking about it in the sense of an intern. So someone to help you. But if you want an assembly line, you build an automation in Power Automate instead.
Yeah, because I feel like the intern analogy, right now it feels like I have a new intern every 2 days. And it's like, when really an intern, you're going to work with them and then you're going to say, then tomorrow they're going to kind of remember the way you asked them to do it the day before. And
Yeah.
they might still make new mistakes, but it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's that. That's what I'm looking for, is how do these models start storing our own personal data? Like how do we hook it up to our data on the back end? And I just feel like Microsoft's hinting at this. Like, oh, there's gonna be $200 a month. You can get some level of, with Azure, some level of ChatGPT type product or Copilot that connects to your data on your back end, so you can almost train it, right? You could feel safe putting a credit card number in so it can book your flight, right? That type of stuff.
Yeah, they did more than hint at it at the Build conference. So they basically mapped out how Copilot is connected to your data. It sits in your data, has access to your data, can do what you need it to do with your data. And this is a question that came up several times. Copilot is the only thing that has access to your data. Microsoft isn't using your data. Nobody is getting trained on this data. Like, their whole thing is, we're not using your data for anything. Your data is your data, and we're not touching it. This Copilot is your Copilot working on your data. So, like, give me an example of something that like a solution you were trying to solve that your intern just completely messed it up after 2 days.
Well, I mean, this is more ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
I trained it so it could stick plane flights into my calendar. I could give it, or just basically paste in the dirty email from Southwest, and it would pump out ICS files from my calendar. And I trained it because I like to have the little airplane emoji on the email. Trained it all that. Then 2 days later, it didn't know how to do it anymore.
Yeah, that sounds about
because it doesn't
right.
store anything. It doesn't store any of my. It doesn't actually learn from me, and I think that's the missing piece here.
Yeah. So the thing I learned that, I mean, and I would say that I've spent quite a bit of time watching videos and reading articles, and the new thing I learned about how, and maybe I already know this, but how ChatGPT works is when you start every new prompt, the model makes a decision about which rabbit hole to go down. It has, let's say, 3 different options that it can choose, and it judges which option is going to be the best option. Based on the rabbit hole it goes down, you could get any number of responses. But after a while, it every time you put in a prompt, it takes everything that it's learned before and goes down that same rabbit hole, right? It doesn't choose new rabbit holes. It's just that same rabbit hole every time. And every time you put in, like, I'm going to travel here, I'm going to travel there, it's going down that same rabbit hole, but it's starting to forget things because it only has so much capacity.
Yeah, because even if I keep the same chat open, right? I don't close
Even
that
if you
chat
keep the
session,
same,
and I keep using that one. You're right. It doesn't remember from 48 hours ago, kind of.
It's going to start dropping to, like, how many tokens did you have in that chat? Do you know?
Tokens.
Oh no. Okay, so tokens. I know all of this language is so strange. It is so why couldn't they call it a thing that that makes sense? Okay. So tokens are basically what I think of as the price that ChatGPT pays for churning through your data. And when we think about it in terms of like characters, like language, because these are language models, so the number of words, the number of spaces, commas, everything, if you're a big comma person, that's going into your token limit. You only get a finite amount of tokens, a finite amount of words into the model before it starts forgetting everything it told you before. So I think it's like 3,000 to 3,500 words, and it starts dropping off the end of the conversation and like losing its track.
And this is why prompt engineering is so important right now, because we have to put everything we want it to do in the prompt at the beginning, and we need to start new prompts, before, like, David, you can't use the same chat over and over and over again for this.
Yeah, you have to
task.
use a new one.
You have to make a new, you basically have to create the perfect prompt for it to make this ICS file and just do a new chat every time.
Yeah, because I can have different chats based on different buckets of the actions or the results I want in those chats, but they kind of go stale. Now, obviously it takes money and power and compute resources to work. Now, is this something, Ashley, that right now I'm paying the $20 a month plan? Is this something that it's just like, oh, one day people have bigger plans where it can remember for a longer amount? Is this a money resource thing, or is it just like a technology, like it just can't do it?
Oh, it can do it. It can, like, you're like in the chat GPT, a GPT-4 engine has a larger token. I can't think of the word right now, but like you technically could have a larger token library to send through it, but ChatGPT has it limited to this 4,000, 3,500, 4,000.
That's good to know.
Artificially. So if you want more tokens, you go over to the ChatGPT playground, which is about the time in a conversation folks' eyes glaze over and they're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll just start a new chat.
So with Azure and Copilot, is this going to these limitations that I'm seeing right now? Is this something that Microsoft's, since it's going to use my data, it should start going away?
Yeah. So it's this is a whole thing. Okay. So your data, having access to your data means that ChatGPT doesn't need to remember it anymore, right? When we think about ChatGPT, it's super helpful to think about it in the terms of like mental memory. It's using its mental memory to remember all of these things. And I don't know if you guys have gone to a conference and you're like, I'm going to learn everything on day 1. And on day 3, you're like, I don't remember my name. I don't remember where I'm parked. So ChatGPT is kind of the same thing, where it has this mental memory, this ability to store up to a certain amount of data and like send it through its model. But when we have to add details to it, because it's general, right? That's the G. The G is general. And then the P and the T are something else that I can never remember. So when we have to add details to it, because it doesn't know us, it never met us, even though we spend maybe months and months and months of quality time with it every time we open up a new chat, it doesn't know who we are. So we have to put in a ton of information for it to give us what we want. That's not going to be a problem in Copilot because the information is already there. It's already mapped for us. Microsoft has their semantic indexing, which if you ask me what that was, I'd say I just know the 2 words and it looked really cool. And I can give you a video on it so you can watch it. But basically, it's like going into our data and being like, this is related to that, and this way is related to that, and this way. And so when we're working with Copilot, it's not having to remember everything. It's just going out to the maps that it made and pulling that data. And then the other cool thing that is going to be the icing on the cake with this is bringing in plugins, which is another
Yeah.
weird word that we're gonna have to learn. But plugins are like, okay, so let's say you had a new staff person, right? And you're like, here's your desk. We're going to tell you nothing and we're going to give you no tools. Good luck. You know everything that you learned in college, and we're going to come over and we're going to shout questions at you occasionally. Sound good? That's kind of how a lot of people treat ChatGPT. And like an intern, it's like, I'm going to answer whatever you say because I really want to answer your question. Not because it's scared, but because it's a robot and that's what it does. So with plugins, it's kind of the same thing as when we give our new staff a computer, or we give them, like for me, I use Checkpoint, so we give them Checkpoint, or we give them a calculator, because ChatGPT, the math it does, and you know, everyone's like, ChatGPT failed the CPA exam on 3.5. I'm like, yeah, it can't do math. ChatGPT 4 can, but it's all, once again, mental math. So giving it a calculator is like giving your new staff a calculator. You're not asking them to do all the mental math.
And I just logged in a couple days ago when I got back from my trip to ChatGPT, and I saw I have plugins now. So I connected Wolfram Alpha, I connected Zapier, I connected Kayak. I haven't really played with it yet, but like I just tried asking it to book a flight to Madrid for me, and now it's asking me all these questions, like the same thing a personal assistant would ask, like, from where are you flying? When do you need to get there? Do you have a preferred departure time? Do you want one way or do you want return? And and it's going to go out to Kayak's database now, and it's going to find me the flight that meets those conditions.
Yeah.
And like that's going to be mind-blowing when that rolls out to more people, when more people start being able to do that, especially with just in Windows, right? I need to book a flight. Just do it right there in the sidebar.
Yeah. So that Spotify thing you saw, that was a plugin.
Yeah.
That was them bringing Spotify in. Do you know who else has a plugin? Thomson Reuters.
Really?
Thomson Reuters has a plugin.
So what does it connect to?
So I was super excited to see that plugin. I was like, oh my goodness, I will never have to go out to Checkpoint again. Look at me. I will just do all of my tax memos in Word and have it make it look nice. It connects to Westlaw. It connects to all of the lawyer stuff right now.
Of course,
Because
the attorneys get it first.
they get it first. But the fact that Thomson Reuters did it,
That fast.
and it means that we will, in maybe 3 or 4 years, get our own plugin.
Hopefully not 3 or 4
Hopefully
years,
sooner.
right? Hopefully 3 or
Hopefully.
4 months. That would be
Yeah. And
nice.
So the thing that, like, the way to think about plugins is that, let's say we want to do everything in just one space. Let's say that we're like, I never want to leave Teams chat again. This is my safe space. Plugins bring in that functionality to where we are. So they're connected by APIs, and the plugin developers get to choose, you know, as always. And an API, for anyone listening, because I keep saying that word and I forget that just 2 months ago when someone said that word to me, I was like, thank you? Should I be offended? So an API is basically a software, has a lot of doors into it that software providers permit certain actions to happen. And so if a software has an API, that means that that particular software is going to let you do something with that data or with a functionality. Not all of it. Software providers get to choose what they let you have access to. But that's what these plugins are. They're like basically a road between your robot, who is sitting on your data, and all of the functionality of your outside vendors, and bringing it into your space. And you'll never have to leave your house again. Oh wait, no, I don't think that's actually what happens. But
well, if I can just chat with the AI and ask it to, get my groceries and pick up my laundry, and then maybe
go
I won't.
outside for you and get some sunshine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Solve my vitamin D deficiency.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Order some vitamins.
Do you want to jump into the earnings reports? Because Intuit's they all Sage and Intuit, they both loosely talk about AI, but I think Intuit's got some interesting marches they're on, and some of their you get into the conference calls. That's where all the good
Yeah.
meat is.
Well,
right?
because they're talking. I know they're talking about using AI in TurboTax, right, to automate more and more of the flow of that. And I just triggered Ashley with that term.
You did. Oh my goodness, you
TurboTax.
guys. Can I say one thing that I saw that like I just knew that TurboTax is going to have it in there by the end of the year. I just knew it. I feel it in my pinky toes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was in a session on a Q&A for AI, and a lot of folks are like, what about the destruction of the world? What about, our data getting stolen? What about this and what about that? And I was like, hey, you showed your forms recognizer, and it looked like you did something really cool there. Can it read tax documents? And this man got so excited. He was like, yes, it can. And it's not just doing OCR now. It's GPT has eyeballs and it's reading tax documents and extracting data that you just need to tell it what to go and get. It can do it for unstructured documents.
Yeah. That's great. Great news, right?
I had a whole summer plan to use AI Builder to train AI Builder on how to read 1099s to impress my friends, but I guess I'll just use that instead.
So I guess that leads us to an interesting question, which is it worth even taking the time to try and build these bridge apps that will use GPT to do this stuff? Or do we just wait until the AI builds it for us, right? And that's why I want to talk to you about the Microsoft stuff, because with Power Automate, with Power Apps, right, we could plug into GPT and we could start automating all this stuff, but we're going to have to do a bunch of work to do it. But it seems like this AI stuff is advancing so quickly that it might connect all of these rails for us in not too long. And then, then we get into the whole philosophical argument of what will work be when AI is doing most of the work for us, and what will it be the end of humanity? But I think that takes us a little out of scope.
Yeah, you went way to the end there.
Yeah. Well, once you get an AI that can reprogram itself, right? Which is, I think, where we're headed. Right? AI will improve itself. Is that can it do that? It can write code.
The interesting thing was, because like I said before, remember when I said it goes down the rabbit hole, right? It goes down the rabbit hole, and if it goes down a rabbit hole, it's going to just continue going down that rabbit hole. It doesn't have a way to go back. And so what I wrote down his name a whole bunch of times today, and I can't remember. He was like a co-developer and co-creator of OpenAI. What he said was that they're not there yet for the ability for GPT-4 to go back and correct itself. That's not a capability that it has, and it's kind of a leap to get there. And there's some models trying to overcome that. Like the auto GPT stuff that that was supposed to overcome GPT-4's going down these rabbit holes. It was supposed to correct for it, but it's still very broken.
Well, yeah,
it's an idea, but still very broken.
It got a lot of attention on Twitter, and people started doing it, but then none of them really worked, right? It sort of spiraled into not productive behavior.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's actually good news, right? In some ways, that.
I think so. I think that it will give us time to redefine what we think work is, because right now, like I said, work is defined by a very old idea that was a concession to working people too much.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're holding large amounts of knowledge workers to that same standard that was created for like industrial workers, which probably was still maybe too many hours a day on the body. Like I would love for us to have the time to redefine what work is. And the funny thing, okay, so is it okay if I respond to some of the comments that popped up?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of folks who have joined us in the live stream. We've got Sarah, we've got Brian, Jennifer, Judy. Thanks for joining us.
So to answer your question about like why would we want to jump in now versus later, and the whole the idea of ROI comes up as well, and so I wrote a blog post in my my kitchen table automations newsletter, which once again I was like, this is such a good idea to start. I'm just gonna do it, and now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this forever. Okay, great. And what the post was about was asking ChatGPT. It was this fictional, like, new staff person who wanted to ask ChatGPT how to save the company money. And depending on the adjectives that you use, you get different responses, right? So it was really fascinating because ChatGPT was able to generate all of these really great ideas to save the company money. And then in the last prompt was what ideas can I bring to my boss as a new staff to save the company money that makes me look good? And it came up with a whole bunch of different responses, but that this young person, this new staff, could do to improve like the company's bottom line or the company's profitability. So I think when we think about ROI, we're thinking about it in like the really big, like heavy lifting sense of, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to become an AI engineer and learn all of these things. But there are so many tiny things we can do right now to incorporate this into our practices. And once again, going back to the whole, like, there's going to be a difference between what AI is going to do, and there's going to be things that you need to automate. So if the question is, where should I focus first? I would say learn the basics of how to talk to the robot, because prompting is so much different than a Google search query. Like, we're having to relearn how to ask clear questions rather than just a Google search query, which like pulls up everything under the sun. So like learning how to prompt is going to be an important skill because we are soon going to be prompting everything. But once you get that under your belt, if you're not interested in creating like these bots like I've been talking about that break things down, that's fine. You don't need to. But you could also use it to help you learn new things. You can use it to help you identify areas of improvement. You can use it for so many different applications.
Every app in your tech stack that you're currently using in your firm and with your clients will have a ChatGPT AI component prompt of some type. They'll be doing some piece of the workflow in that app through AI. So this is inevitable. Like Mark
Right.
words, it is coming. We've already talked about some high-level ones. These apps that send emails are all kind of adding it. We talked about Canopy and
Carbon.
Client Hub is added.
Client
It's like the
Hub.
task list. It'll create the task you need. Like it's here. So like if you're thinking about like why should I jump in, you're right. You could just sit on the sideline too because it's just going to show up in all your apps you're using, and hopefully if the apps do it right, you shouldn't need this expertise of prompts. The app should be able to build a layer in between, right? And to where you have to do less, where it is just that magic light bulb button, you hit it, and then it does all the work for you, right? But the real thing, I think the learning, and that's why experimenting is important, is understanding the limitations. Because if you just, hey, I hit the magic light bulb and it did something for me, like you need to get to that point where you're like, okay, I know I have to check it, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't even know where I saw this. I think it was blanking out on who tweeted. It was on Twitter. Like somebody talked. It's like really you're turning into like a traffic cop for AI, right? You're just like, okay, that's okay. Let it through. That one's not okay. Like go back, try again, and that's the skill set you need to have, right? It's that interpretation skill set.
So
Yeah.
before we go any farther, Ashley, I want to give you a chance to talk about your newsletter. You have a newsletter you started on Substack, Kitchen Table
I
Automation.
did. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah. So I was this is a shout out to Jason Stats. He had a daily show about just starting creating content, and I'm like, I talk all the time on Twitter. Why don't I just make a newsletter so I can talk all the time in a newsletter? And it's free. And the whole idea around this newsletter is that a lot of this technology is kind of big and scary, and we're hearing a ton about it, and we don't know if it's applicable to us. So let's make it simple. Let's make it easy. Let's make it not scary. I'm not talking about anything like super wild. I'm not like the first section is like ChatGPT. Oh yeah, I also recommend his. The first section is ChatGPT, and then I talk about like a Microsoft app, because if you pay for Microsoft 365, you get probably between 100 and 3 million apps that you've never used before. Every time I go in there, I feel like I'm like, oh, I've never seen or heard of this app before. What does it do? So I talk about like a Microsoft app that you can use. And then the last section is about using Power Automate, but not in like the scary, you're a technical person and you love to use Excel macros. It's more like you want to use it because it's going to make your life easier. Well, what do you need to know? And so, yeah, it's the whole point of it is just to make it really tech friendly or really friendly for accountants and tax professionals and even financial planners, because I feel like we get bombarded with all of this like crazy tech stuff, and it doesn't need to be scary. I mean, we have learned really hard stuff in our profession. We have probably the worst software to learn and then learn the workarounds, and then we have like the technical stuff, like the tax and accounting technical stuff. We have the capability of learning these things. It's just the way that it comes to us doesn't make any sense in our vernacular. So that's the goal of the newsletter, is just to help folks get comfortable.
You've also got some courses?
I did. This is another thing that I was like, I don't think anybody's going to sign up for this. What I didn't think so. So this one of the things I kept seeing over and over again was like, I don't have time to go down this rabbit hole. I don't have time to learn about prompting. And I'm like, oh no, we don't have time not to learn about prompting, because there are ways to, well, for one thing, I don't know if anybody knows this, but nobody actually knows how to prompt ChatGPT effectively. There's like studies that come out about, okay, so we found a new way to get a better response from the robot. Like they made this thing and it didn't come with an instruction manual. So the idea of this class is like, it is basically, you don't have to go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to lead you down this nice, well manicured path that is going to take you less than 5 minutes a day. It's just 30 days of tiny prompts, take you less than 5 minutes a day. And by the end of it, you will feel very comfortable with just the basics of a good solid prompt, and like how you can, different ways you can use ChatGPT to make your life better, easier. Like that's what we're here for, right? If it wasn't making our lives better, we wouldn't use it.
Well, I like the
Um,
5 minutes a day thing. That's
yeah,
really good.
everyone's so busy.
My key takeaway is just from talking to everybody who's doing anything with AI is just it's almost like everything in life. Just start learning about it, and it doesn't
Right.
have to be overwhelming. It can just be a little bit every day. Just sign up, start using it, and you'll be ahead of 98% of the profession, right? That is not doing anything. That is just sitting back and waiting. And
And I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that you have to like go and nobody that I know of has actually like built any of this into their standard processes in their firm yet, right? This is not like deeply like nobody is doing that yet. But if we're learning about it, then we can, when these tools become available, we can start doing that, and we'll be ahead of the herd.
Yeah. I also think that um, we're going to be seeing a lot of like AI flavored uh, AI flavored software coming out. Like my software has now this flavor of AI, and my software has 100% more AI in every byte. And unless you know, or unless you're comfortable with what sort of AI is actually impressive and what sort of AI is like, oh, okay, well, thanks for putting that in there, but I your software isn't enhanced by that AI, so I'm
Yeah.
not really going to get excited about that. Um, I think that's like just kind of getting in and learning about it is a way to figure out, okay, so should I be impressed, or is this just something that they added because they wanted to put AI on there?
Yeah. The
And
the
so
marketing the marketing feature, not the
right,
actual
it's the
productivity feature.
organic free range
Yeah.
AI that has never been outside of its like AI home and cage free, everything like that.
Yeah.
The the thing I was surprised about with this class, it's so the first class, the June class, it is asynchronous, right? The idea is like you're gonna get a video from me at the beginning of the week, but that's the only time you see my face because I'm not the star of this show. You're gonna get every day. You're just gonna get a little tiny exercise, easy to do, less than 5 minutes, that will help kind of hold your hand in like playing with AI. And then if you're overzealous and ambitious and you love extra credit, there will be weekly exercises that will like take you a little bit more down the rabbit hole, but not into the. I mean, you're not going to be building a bot like a auto GPT bot from this. You
We're not
are
we're not automating our jobs yet.
We're not. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is not the class for that. So that class, I was so surprised it filled up.
That's great.
Because I wanted to
Congrats.
limit it to 100 people so that because I want people to get in the comments
Yeah.
and share what they learned, because I think it is like once you get into using ChatGPT properly, it is incredible. Like you're like, why does this exist? How is it possible? Kill it with fire, things like that, like all of their responses. And so I want people to share and help others like come up with more ideas, right?
Yeah.
So I was so surprised it filled up. So I have a July class now. If folks want to sign up, and yeah, it's amazing.
I don't think we mentioned the URL. Where should people go for both your newsletter and the class? Is there one place they can go?
I wish.
Well, you've got
Just
kitchentableautomations.com.
Kitchen Table, yes, kitchentableautomations.substack.com for the newsletter,
Got it.
and
And then
kitchentableautomations.thinkific, which is a THINKIFIC.com. I keep calling it Thinkific, and that is not the name. It's Thinkific.
And we'll put the
Thinkific.
links in the show notes so somebody can easily
Okay.
find that.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a problem.
I'm so excited though for folks to just start getting in and playing around with it, because I think once they get in there and they start seeing what it can do, if you think about our profession and just how many barriers we have to actually providing client service. We have so many things in the way that get between us and our clients, like bad data. We have too many emails. We have all of our data is siloed. We have, everything is coming in from different places. The ChatGPT is only the beginning, and it's going to like all of the complexity in the world, all of the just millions and millions of pieces of data that have been created because the internet was created. We're going to have a barrier in between us and all of that data that's going to quiet down noise, simplify it for us, and also, as an added bonus, do stuff. Do stuff we don't want to do because it's repetitive and boring.
And here's an example. While David was talking and I wasn't listening to him, I asked ChatGPT to book me a flight on Kayak or find me some flights on Kayak. It asked me all these questions. I gave it a tough one. I said, I need to go to Madrid on Monday. Find me some flights. It asked me 7 questions. I replied, and then it gave me 4 different options with the price, with the return, how many stops, all that. Like, just right then and there. That easy. Just using the plugins.
If you go to the search right now, so here Microsoft wrecked my day because my class was like, it's week 1. We're just learning the framework for a good prompt, which I know sounds like, oh, that's going to take a whole week. Yes, because a good prompt has certain aspects to it. Week 2 was going to be adding in flavor and ways to enhance your prompt to make it even better. Week 3, we were going to go over to Bing AI and show what you can do with like pulling data from web sources. And week 4 was like, actually using it in your real life, right? But at the conference, they were like, and now Bing AI is going to be the search feature for ChatGPT 4, and soon it will come down to ChatGPT 3.5. And I was like, no, you didn't. You didn't just do that to my what are you doing?
It's all
Microsoft,
changing so fast.
on.
That's the thing
really
that's nuts
is.
about all this. Like, I feel like, when David and I started this show, what was it, 5-6 years ago, David? The developments in cloud-based accounting were coming in hot and fast,
Right.
but it took years, and now we're seeing the same pace in months.
It's not comfortable. It's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Like,
as someone who's trying to keep ahead of it, it's uncomfortable. It's hard.
I tuned out for a couple of weeks. I come back and it's all different. Like that's going to be the big challenge for us as professionals, is just dealing with this pace of change. So thank you, Ashley, for being out there and putting this information out there and helping us understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is like, as professionals, we really only have to worry about specific things, right? Our number one thing we have to worry about is security. And then everything else, at least that's how I feel about it. Like, everything else falls out of that. So all of these like auto GPTs and like GPTs that'll drive your car and GPTs that'll do your laundry. As a professional, like, first I look at security and then I look at everything else. Does it make my life better? Does it solve a problem I have? I have to tell you guys. So I tried to go to sessions, like lab sessions at this conference, because I was like, I can do this. I will totally learn how to program and then bring it back to the people, and we will all program together and it will be glorious. And so after the first Teams with Toolkits lab, I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go and talk to people instead and see what they have to say about stuff. It's not like Teams with Toolkit, like the toolkit for Teams was hard. It was just like, I don't want to be learning this in front of other people and having them all like having to help me log in. So what I would do is I'd go around and be like, hey, I'm a CPA and I have all of these problems. And one of the conversations that was so funny, I had this group of like super smart people from Microsoft standing around me. And I was like, as a tax professional, we don't have a solution that is like an all-in-one solution that solves our CRM, our ERP, our portal, our document management, our whatever else. I mean, it's not going to obviously do our tax returns because I feel like that's always going to be siloed, right? But like we have huge needs and it all is subject to regulation about who can have access to our data, right? And I like starting out the conversation, they're like, you could become a millionaire. You just need to create this thing. It'd be so easy. And then as I added on every next complexity, they're like, oh yeah, that's a pretty tough problem. Yeah. Yeah, you'd be super rich if you could solve it. I'm like, okay, well, thank you. I was hoping you could solve it. I could take it back and then go be rich. But no, it's not an easy solution to solve. So kind of back to your question about like, why should we get into these things now? We have so many problems that we can solve while we're waiting for other people to solve other problems that it feels like we could probably just play around and come up with cool things that make our lives easier. And if someone then comes along and makes a similar cool thing, that's great.
And then we know how to use it.
And then we know how to use it and whether we should be impressed or not, right? That's the other thing. Should we be impressed or not?
Well, Ashley, it's been so great talking to you. David, I think you have something.
Yeah, I was going to say we're coming up in the hour, but we're going to have to go long, Blake, because there's just news we got to talk about. We're just going to have to go long.
We'll just have to do a double episode this week. So let's you and me figure out when we'll do that. We'll do a news episode. It was great talking to you, Ashley.
I'm so sorry, David, for taking up all your time.
Okay.
I know you had stuff you were excited on talking about.
We've done this before where we have a guest on and we just we can't stop talking about the thing that you're here to talk about. And I'm so glad we got to delve deep into it with you. People should follow Ashley at Seattle_tax. You can follow me. I'm at Blake T. Oliver. How about you, David?
Just on all the socials at David Leary. Two of the things to plug. So we are going to be doing a session at AICPA Engage on Monday, June 5th at 7 a.m. So if you're going to, I guess it's AICPA CIMA, right?
It's AICPA-CIMA.com now.
So we're doing a session with ShareFile. The session's called Elevate and Modernize Your Client Experience, presented by ShareFile. And then if I'm understanding correctly, Ashley, you're speaking at Engage 2023 as well?
I am. I guess we're the Monday crew. I'm going to be speaking at I think it's 1:30. I should have this.
Oh.
I'm just going to show up when I show up. But it's called Navigating Uncharted Opportunities. It's going to be a session on AI and personal financial planning.
Can we swap with you because we're on at 7 a.m.? So
I'd be awake. I'll have been awake for hours by that point. I don't know your topic very well, but I'm sure that I could muddle through.
Well, I look forward to meeting you in person at Engage, and we gotta figure that out.
For sure.
And
I think I was gonna come by your booth for your millionth episode, so then I could borrow your equipment to do one of my trainings.
You should. Sometimes it feels like a million episodes, but it's a million downloads. Yeah. But
that's still pretty cool. That's really
Monday evening, if you're at Engage 2023, swing by. We are going to do some cake and a toast, hopefully, celebrating our millionth download. We're in the Quick Fee booth, and track us down.
Cool. Thanks, everyone who joined us live today. As always, you can tune in, subscribe to Cloud Accounting Podcast on YouTube, and you'll get notified when we go live, and we love to chat with you all. Ashley, we'll see you pretty soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.